Gabriel is saying, what kind of is the ideal conversion rate for conversation to lead? So I think this is different for everybody, depending on what you're prospecting, what kind of asset class you're calling. But trying to be somewhere in the vicinity of like 20 conversations to one lead minimum would probably be that's like a bare minimum. If you're above that, that's good. It's great if you're like a 10 to 1, but it's just rare to see. Do you count someone who is open to hearing an offer but not motivated to sell as a lead? At the very beginning of your career, you can count it as a lead. For me, I'm not counting that as a lead. It just doesn't make much sense to me. What I am counting as a lead is somebody who is like, there's actually some level of motivation and the price is within striking. That's going to be a good lead, right? Because if you can generate two of those every single day, you're going to be making quite a bit of money. But at the very beginning of my career, I would 100% just like at the very beginning of your career, because you just want to get into the mindset of positivity. 100% it'd be counting these people as leads. Curious to know how many conversations lead to a signed contract for others. Yeah, you guys can all talk about that. Arlene says, I have a lead that's looking for 100 square feet in Elizabeth Industrial backed up by the city, looking for a lease. Is that 100,000 square feet or is that 100 feet?
A
100 feet.
hundred thousand, yes. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, 100,000 feet. Okay, I can, if you want to just direct message me, I'll take a look at what we have available, but we might have a few things. Also, we can try to, we can talk about that separately. We can work on that deal together. I think I have like two or three buildings in Elizabeth that might fit. I just have to see if they're vacant or not. I can't remember.
Yes, sir. Just wanted to know if there was any questions on top of the retail questions I need to ask when talking to owners of gas stations, because I come across a lot of gas stations and I'm not exactly sure all the questions I need to ask in order to evaluate it properly. So I wanted to know if there's any extra questions I should be asking the owners.
Okay, cool. So one, you want a P&L if you can get it. Gallons per month. Very important question. How many gallons a month are they selling? Next is, do they have a service agreement? Okay, service agreement is like like you can see like I call it a flag, right? Same thing with hotels. Are they contracted to a company to like Sunoco's mobile, right? Like are they contracted to a company like Exxon, like they are selling someone else's type of someone else's gas as an example, like or is it a privately owned type of gas station? It's like John's gas station. So you want to just know is like, are they contractually obligated to that? And then the only other thing that I'd be looking into is like, do they have any other type of business that is being done on the property? So something like for a gas station, does it have a convenience store? If so, what's the P&L for that? Does it have an auto body shop? What's the P&L for that? If it's released, give me the information for that, right? Like you just want to have any and other ideas of everything that's transacting on that one specific lot.
Okay, I appreciate that.
But gallons per month and service agreement are probably going to be two quick things you're really going to need to know.
Perfect. I just wrote all that down.
You got it. And if you have anything good, let me know.
Hey, yeah, I was basically gonna ask similar question. What are like, because when the lead fell on my lap, it was I didn't really know exactly what to ask. Pre-qual questions for leasing and buying, so I can really get started on this.
Sure. Okay. So this is for the individual who wants the 100,000 feet. Okay, cool. So
Yeah, I didn't really know what to ask or how to
okay,
even
cool.
go about it. I was thinking about driving around, calling the numbers because there is
Yeah.
a industrial area right here, but he wants to be close to the airport.
Great. So I mean, look, number one, you're already asking location questions, which is good, right? It's close. Like what I like to try to say is like, is there anything specific you want to be close to, such as the port or any other larger highways, as an example, right? Is there anything you need to be close to, or any specific area you need to be in, or neighborhood that you need to be in? This way, we can be hyper targeted. Two, tell me more about the building that is ideal for you, right? You want 100,000 feet. Can that be, is that one story, right? Do you need one story? Are you open to multiple stories? Two, do you need loading docks? If so, how many? Three, drive-ins? If so, how many? I have some of these types of questions about in the seller side, right? In the script book for the industrial, you can see in the seller side. So it'll say loading docks, drive-ins, ceiling heights. Is there a ceiling height requirement that they need? Is there a specific amount of office space that they need? Obviously, that can be built out, but you want to know specifically the ceiling heights, drive-ins, loading docks are very important. Power, how much power are they going to need? If like sometimes they have huge power requirements for maybe some equipment that they have in the building. And then for the most part, that should cover a lot of what they're specifically looking for. And then the question also is then going to be for the lease, do you have a budget in mind? Because if they say, listen, we're looking to pay $8 a foot, it's like, I don't know where you're finding that. I'm sorry. you'll notice that, in Elizabeth, unless you're in the middle of the hood, you're probably not paying $8 a foot, near the airport. But if they say something like, look, honestly, we don't really have a budget. We just need the right building. Our budget's, we'll pay anything, right? Then at least you know that you have a sophisticated person. Question also, why are you moving? Why do you need more space? Right? Is this like, a preliminary thing, or is this an absolute, you need more space by X time or you're going to have an issue? Last question you're going to ask is TI. Is there any TI that you need, right? Is there going to be a build out that is going to be required? And are you expecting the landlord to take care of it?
Wait, what's TI?
Tenant improvements. So like if they hypothetically go in and it's like for retail and industrial, like office, a lot of the time for office, the landlord will do it. For and cover the vast majority of all TI, and then you kind of get reimbursed. In retail, it's it's flip flop. Sometimes the tenant does it, sometimes the landlord does it. And if for industrial, it's pretty similar. Sometimes the tenant does 100% of it, or sometimes the landlord covers it, and then they get reimbursed. You just like to just kind of get a gauge, because sometimes the landlords, I'll give you an example. Hired landlords, the buildings that are beat the up. You have hypothetically, let's just say that you and I wanted to go start any type of, let's say a salon, like a really nice high-end salon. Say it's going to cost $200-300 to build it out. There are some really tired landlords that are going to be like, you go do all that, right? Like, I don't have $200-300. I'm not laying out $200-300 for you to go, rent my space. However, there are going to be some very sophisticated landlords in a nice, in a nice area of town, nice quality building, where like, hey, I need a $200,000 or $300,000 build out. They'll spend the money, and then you just reimburse them over the next 10 years when you're paying your rent, which is a very common thing. So that's why it's clear, like, hey, for this type of building.
It seems like you're discussing tenant improvements and reimbursement over time.
What is happening right now? Oh, that's my note taker. I'm going to remove that. Thank you very much.
And then the last one would be like, I didn't even know how to get started for hunting for these people.
Got it. So CoStar is going to be your best bet. You can also use LoopNet. Not as good, but CoStar. CoStar is ideal. You're going to reach out.
I thought around, like,
for what?
I thought about like driving around the industrial part and just calling
you could
the numbers, because some of them
you definitely could.
Like,
I would just let you know that like for leasing, it's like jumping through two hoops. Okay, so like not only about getting them interested in the idea of doing something with their building, but also they need to have 100,000 square feet of vacancy. So just keep in mind that like you can absolutely call. I think that's a possibility, but also for leasing, it's very much like residential, where you're going to want to reach out to brokers who have product.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was planning on doing, calling the signs, because I've seen some around the area, the industrial part. They have some brokers have signs like the blue. Like he's one of the most. There's like 2 companies that I know that are very popular. Yeah. In New Jersey.
So just keep in mind, like for all the leasing, a lot of it's through other brokers. That's where you're gonna have to handle that. But I might have some off-market buildings that might have 100,000 feet of vacancy.
Yeah, thank you.
You got it. No problem. Kevin says, what guarantees does the landlord put in place to get reimbursed for the tenant improvements if the tenant's default? Yeah, I mean, like they're signing personal guarantees, right? They're saying like, I will go after you and sue the hell out of you if you try to screw me on my payments, my reimbursements. And also keep in mind, as a landlord, like obviously, like you're not gonna just give some random person a TI. What you're going to do is that you're going to vet the heck out of them. Like, hey, do they have 6 other locations? Or, I'm going to drive the other 6 locations. I'm going to go look at them. I'm going to go see how nice they are. Are they busy? And if I see that they're, a good quality tenant, then sure, we'll spend some money on it. Guys, like think about it. If Chipotle, or actually say this again, if Starbucks, right, wanted to come and be in your shopping center, right, and they go, I need $1 million in TI, I'm probably going to give it to them. Because it's Starbucks, and if there's a Starbucks in your center and they're willing to sign a 25-year lease and they want $1 million in TI and they're basically willing to reimburse you for it, because that's what's going to happen, I'm going to trust Starbucks. Am I going to trust Joe's Coffee, who has 1 location? No, probably not. It's just you're going to have to make those. I'm going to have Joe sign every single possible thing you can imagine, and I'm going to have him tie his house up as collateral. I'm going to make sure that we get the payment back.
Hi, I do. An agent of mine has a client who's looking to lease a car dealership. So would you say the CoStar is still the best place to look?
Okay, tell me. Is he looking to like, is it like a Chevy or a Ford dealership, or is it just like a used car?
That he can use. No, he's looking for a commercial property that can be used for a car dealership, looking to lease, not buy.
I understand. I'm just saying, like, are you talking about like a Ford dealership?
No, I think a small shop. I don't think.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to say. So, so two things. Always, by the way, in these types of circumstances, you could start with anytime it comes to leasing, you could start with CoStar and LoopNet for sure. CoStar is probably going to give you better data. However, what's also a possibility is that you could use zoning maps to kind of help you out. And what I mean by that is that there are certain corridors in a lot of different towns that have car dealerships as a zoning use that is permitted in those areas. And then you could prospect those areas to see if someone might be considering, leasing out their space, right? If they might consider selling or leasing out their space. Because if it's hypothetically like a car dealership, hypothetically, obviously they're going to need a decent amount of land. Typically, right, they're going to need like an acre or an acre plus, right, to park a lot of cars. So something like an enterprise. So like as an enterprise rental car company, it's a very different type of thing, right? Like you only need hypothetically, an acre of land, and it could be like a house. Like it doesn't need to be some type of crazy thing, but zoning is going to be important to make sure that it is approved for that area. So like if you see hypothetically, I would look at like where is an enterprise, where is an Avis, where is all these other competitive companies, because if they're on a certain corridor, it might have something available. And again, if you have a certain area of what they're looking for, please, you can reach out. Might have something for you as well. Looks like Arlene might be able to help you out as well. She might have something off market. I know I have a couple things off market, so the more details, the better.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Thanks.
Quick question. So I try to stay away from leasing just because I feel like dollar per hour doesn't really like pay that well compared to just making sales. How do you make leasing worth more of your time?
Bigger the better. So if you have like a big retail space that you're going to lease out as a tenant, like you want to be you want to be the landlord's rep. You want to be a landlord rep on like a 10,000 plus foot space or 5,000 feet or more in a very good area. Because what will happen is that the way it gets profitable is like, okay, if you have a 10,000 square foot space and they want $20 a foot triple net, $20 a foot times the 10,000 is 200,000, right? And if they sign a 5-year lease, that's $1 million at 5% commission that you can make, right? So now it's all of a sudden, it's like a $50,000 check that you can make there, right? Keep in mind that the reason why it doesn't make sense for a lot of people is because it's like, if you're leasing out 1,000 square foot spaces at $10 a foot, that's 10 grand a year. 10 grand a year, and they sign a 3-year lease, it's $30,000 at 5% commission if you represent both sides, even at most, and it's $1,500. It's not worth it. But like when you're in much larger sizes, which as a landlord rep, you can make some good money. Just either 10,000 square feet or more in for as a landlord rep, or in decent locations, or in great locations, 5,000 square feet or larger, industrial or retail. Retail is actually probably one of the better places to be for leasing, especially if you can get them to sign incredibly long-term leases. You can make some great money. Like I had a friend of a friend about 8 years ago when I was very, very new to the business. Obviously, he leased out a 1 million square foot industrial building at like $8 a foot triple net for 20 years. So there's a lot of money to be made in leasing if you are trying to lease up the right stuff, right? If you're trying to work on tiny little crap, 1,000 square foot spaces, there's no money. But definitely, if you can get into larger stuff and you have like a huge tenant, like Arlene has a 100,000 square foot leasing tenant, could be fantastic. Jose says, would you turn away residential agent referrals for these small leases when they're insisting on a 25% referral fee? That's hilarious. So here's the thing, guys, right? Like, if you're landlord repping, sure. Like it's like listing a $200,000 house, right? Like, do you want them? No, but it's, you're going to make a few $1,000, right? Like take it, and it's not really that crazy. But what I would tell them is like, if you want to pay for the marketing, I'll give you 25%. But like, I can't pay you 25% on nothing, because here's the thing, like to put it on LoopNet, it's $150. I'm not saying it's a lot of money. But if you have a space, it's about $150 a month on LoopNet to post a listing. So if hypothetically you have a deal that someone's referring you 1,000 square feet space and it's going to be listed at $10 a foot triple net or something, and they want 25%, and the total fee is only going to be like $1,500 to $2,500, it's probably not going to be worth it. But if they, you want to pay for the whatever, we can co-list it. I'll represent, let's co-list it. You pay for the marketing, right? And I'll help you negotiate it, and we'll split the deal 50-50. Even if you only make 50%, totally fine. I'd rather do 50-50 with no cost than 25% and, a referral fee out and incur all the cost. Just keep in mind, like, there's a way to make it profitable for you. Now, don't get me wrong. Keep in mind, like, hey, they're going to get the signs. They're going to have to get all this kind of stuff. So there's the right way to do it and the wrong way to do it. Hope that makes sense.